testify how God took out the heat in the fiery fire. Come here, Daniel, what do you have to say? The lions were made pillows for my head to lay. Somebody ought to testify. Oh, somebody ought to testify. For God I'll live, for God I'll die. Somebody ought to testify. We'll tell of His goodness, come on and testify. If God's been good to you, you ought to testify. Can I get a witness? Get up. Somebody shout glory. Get up. Get up.